What you see is part of an hour in so-called structural integration. Structural integration is a technique which aims at organizing, at ordering a body, at bringing muscles back into the place where they belong in terms of their theoretical order. The young man whom you see working is Bob Hines, a practitioner in structural integration, sometimes called Rolfing from the fact that it was developed by Ida Rolf, namely myself, and that this is part of a technique to make a person feel more effective, more efficient, to make him better organized, better coordinated, because he is in the gravitational field and accepting it and working in it and working with it instead of fighting it as the average random body has to do. In structural integration, we expect to give a cycle of 10 sessions. There is a reason for this. We are not dealing with local problems. We are not dealing with the kind of thing that you can say, well, I fixed that, that's all. We are dealing with an attempt to make a body a sturdier human being, to make a body more secure, more adequate within the field of gravity. Now this requires that muscles be balanced. They need to be balanced around a vertical line. And when I talk about balancing muscles, I'm talking about balancing the right side against the left side, about balancing the front of the body against the back of the body, and finally about balancing the innermost muscles against the outermost muscles, the inside against the outside. This is the most important of those balances. And we start from the outside working in, and it takes us 10 hours before we can get to the place where we can really balance outside against inside. Bodies carry their history written within them. In the event of accidents, and sometimes quite minor accidents, little Johnny falls, and Mama looks him over and he's still operational. And Mama tells the neighbor, we're so lucky, Johnny didn't hurt himself. Nothing happened to Johnny, but actually things have happened to Johnny, and various of Johnny's muscles have been displaced slightly, so that Johnny, in continuing to move around, to run around, to climb around, is using a different muscular pattern. And that different muscular pattern places itself on top of what should be the effective muscular pattern of the uninjured body. In the cycle of 10 sessions, which is basic to this work, there is a complete overseeing of what is going on in terms of the muscular and fascial patterns of the body. What we are interested in doing is setting muscular groupings where they belong in order to work most efficiently in the gravity, within the gravity field, in order to support the body with the least effort. That means that you have to induce a balance. You induce this balance by getting two sides symmetrical, front and back symmetrical, inside and outside symmetrical. And if you're trained to see it, you can see to what extent you have succeeded in doing this through the changes in the outer contour. This becomes apparent in our before and after 10 pictures. This young lady is a model in a class in Miami, and actually sent to us by a children's clinic. She's only about 17 years old, perhaps. And you see here how the contour of her back and the contour of her abdomen display the fact that her lumbar structure is much too far anterior. As a result, she's compensating with these buttocks much too far back. Whereas at the end of 10 hours, so much of this has changed. The lumbar structure has come back. Because the lumbar structure comes back, the hip structure drops, and that buttock structure becomes much more normalized. Her neck begins to sit up on her spine, over the spine, supported by the underlying spine. Here you have the neck structure and it makes you suspect that it's breaking, that it seems to be no support below it. A Rolfing, a structural integration session, demonstrates that a body is a plastic medium. It demonstrates that this plastic medium can be changed back to the model which we accept as being energy-wise a more efficient unit. In order for a more efficient unit to come from a body, that body must be arranged in a symmetrical pattern around a vertical line. You have to deal with the body as an aggregate of blocks. You have to change the positioning of the blocks so that the center of gravity in one is virtually above the center of gravity in another. Now, if you look at any given person, be he child or adult, you see certain landmarks, and those landmarks betray to you a great deal about the underlying structure. You may see that a knee is directly opposite a knee, that you can draw a horizontal line, but the chances are you won't, because in random bodies what you find is an oblique line. And you find an oblique line connecting the various similar landmarks on the pelvis. And you find an oblique line connecting similar landmarks on the shoulders. Let me say parenthetically that these drawings were made from actual photographs of a little 3-year-old who had a defective hip in one of our earlier classes. And when you look at that, you see these blocks twisted. Some of them are too far back, some of them too far forward, some of them are rotated around, and some of them actually get tipped. They're higher in the back than they are in the front and so forth. And you look at that child and you say, well, that child has very poor posture. But he doesn't have poor posture. He has poor structure. The object of Rolfing, the goal of Rolfing, is to transform these oblique lines into horizontal lines. Because the basic goal of Rolfing is to establish a horizontal pelvis.
Okay. Could you tell me something about the limitations that you have in your dance and where you're feeling it in your body?
Well, most of the trouble is with alignment. When I stand sideways, my neck goes this way, and so I don't get a straight vertical feel. I can try to correct it from my normal posture. What I try to do is pull back my lower back and lengthen my neck so I feel a little more vertical. But as soon as I'm not concentrating on that, I lose it again.
What happens when you lose it? What do you feel happening in your body?
I sink into my pelvis. But I get this curve in my lower back and my neck. I feel like I'm moving across the floor this way.
Right.
That's an exaggeration.
The basic problem in practically all bodies is a shortening of the spine. And that shortening of the spine occurs by virtue of the lumbar spine, which consists of very heavy vertebrae and which becomes displaced forward. All muscles are wrapped in a tissue which is named fascia. And for those of you who don't understand this word fascia, let me suggest that you think of an orange that you cut across the equator, and you see it and then divided into many segments. Now, the divisions between the segments correspond to the divisions in animal tissue that we call fascia. This is an interesting tissue that is largely collagen. And collagen is important to us because of its very special characteristics. Now, in the body, every muscle and every organ is enwrapped in fascia. And finally, this whole collection of wrapped fascial organs and so forth is wrapped in what amounts to a shopping bag, an external bag that is called the superficial fascia. And these various fascial planes and fascial bags hold that body together. But all of them are connected one to another. This is a model of two muscles designed to show how muscles work and how muscles fail to work. Many muscles cross one another. Others lie adjacent to each other. When a myofascial structure is injured, And this can happen in an accident, or it can happen through such a thing as a dose of flu that gets in an area where there are muscles. But at any rate, whenever a myofascial structure is injured, it secretes various semi-fluid materials which should really improve the movement of muscles, and does really while it is semi-fluid. But then it dries on, and the semi-fluid material becomes a glue. It will be a glue between the fascia, the envelope of the fascia, and the envelope of the fascia of this muscle. And that glue prevents it from really working independently. And so when this muscle is pulled, it is impeded by the glue that is sticking those two fascial envelopes together. And so when we call on this muscle for movement, what we really get is this muscle impeded by that muscle. And so there is not free movement. And so every attempt at moving that muscle requires more energy, because you have to move both this muscle and that muscle. As I said before, the collagen tissue is a very special tissue. It's a very special kind of a complicated protein tissue. And it is special in the sense that by the application of energy, you can change its length and its resilience. Now, as the Rolf applies energy at this point perhaps and this point, at any rate in the neighborhood of the place where the tissue is built up into something of a hard little knot, as he applies energy there, the glue seems to dissolve. And all of a sudden, he feels under his fingers that one muscle is moving on the other muscle freely, and that these two muscles can begin to operate in their respective directions, in the direction called for by their design. And of course, after all, we claim that we don't want to take on people who are not going to have at least 10 hours because we want to establish an essential verticality. Basically, we feel ourselves not therapists. We feel that we are teachers. And my expression of this is that we are not therapists under any circumstances, that it is the gravitational field that is the therapist. What we do is to prepare the body to receive the support from the gravitational field, which gives the greatest sense of well-being. Serious traumatic episodes also leave their mark. And later in life, a person goes to a psychotherapist of some sort, expecting to get those dug out. But actually, those very serious traumatic episodes are anchored literally in the flesh of the body. And until the flesh of the body is freed so that it can move appropriately to the pattern, the traumatic episode cannot really be erased from that body, forgotten. It's not possible. To me, personality is not a mental thing, but to me, personality expresses a two-sided coin, on one of which one side is the physical and one side is the mental. And a serious change in either one will most certainly result in a serious change in the other. Always people are innovators by virtue of the fact that they have come up against a problem to which there is no answer in the accepted field, in the conventional field, and so they set about trying to find out what is the answer, what can give them a help with their problem. I had a child who had certain problems that I couldn't find help for in the accepted field. And so I started looking around trying to find out what were the elements in this child's problem which could be changed. Because always you have to change your premise in order to get a different conclusion.